It's time for another Luton Town Premier League preview as we look ahead to match day 12 and an away trip that will be enjoyable for so many. It is Manchester United versus Luton Town, but in addition to that, we will also do our full weekend predictions for the Premier League, and as always, I'll encourage you to get involved down in the comments as well. Let me know your score predictions for match day 12, and if you beat or match mine, you'll get a shout out in the recap in the next episode following the international break. But this is a pretty big game this week. Manchester United v Luton Town at Old Trafford. A dream for many Luton fans who a decade or so ago were, well, going to the Manchester area to watch games against non-league sides. So a very different outing for us here. To look ahead to this game, we obviously have to look back at what happened last weekend, where Luton Town and Liverpool played out a thrilling 1-1 draw, and Manchester United nicked a crucial late 1-0 win away at Fulham. Late goal starting to return for Manchester United, which perhaps is a sign of positivity. Now, I should caveat very quickly at the start and say I'm having to record this on Wednesday prior to Manchester United's Champions League game because unfortunately work commitments get in the way. And that means I'm not going to have a fair indicator of what shape they're in because it could either be crisis or back to a little bit of form tonight with back-to-back wins. So I'm not going to be able to judge fully on that, but I can judge the Fulham game last weekend. But before we go and get onto that, let's talk about Luton-Liverpool because it was 90-odd minutes of breathtaking Premier League action. Both sides carried a massive counter-attacking threat. Both sides probably had their best chances from opposition set pieces at the other end. And both sides at times had to defend very well. And both goalkeepers made a number of good saves. For Liverpool, of course, they had great chances to win the game against Luton and missed 2 or 3 very good opportunities. But Alisson was called upon several times as well, including in the 98th minute from Issa Kabore. What we did see though from Luton was the first time probably this year where on the pitch they were able to go toe-to-toe with a top Premier League side. Against some of the other traditional Big Six like Spurs at home, we sat off them a bit much for the first 20 minutes and really let them dictate the game. Against Chelsea away from home, we were caught out a bit rabbit in the headlight style. But now we seem like we've arrived in the Premier League and we're starting to compete with some of the bigger boys. So it's great to see that the performances are there and the belief is there. And coming up against the United side with a number of injuries in certain areas, and also after a midweek game on the Wednesday, might not be a bad thing. And I feel really weird saying this near the start of the episode, but it's probably among the most confident I've felt going into a Premier League game this season. I've predicted Luton to draw a few games. Most of them have been right. But I haven't actually predicted Luton to win a game yet this season. There's not a game where I've gone in and thought we're the favourites. And obviously that's not the case here. But I am quite optimistic we might cause an upset. So let's talk about the Luton display because lots of counter-attacking threat. 2 players out wide with bundles of pace that kept their line quite high and were a constant counter-attacking threat to the Liverpool fullbacks who vacated their areas to get forward. So it worked out pretty well tactically. It was a good judgment from Rob Edwards. And I think a lot of the pundits involved and even Jurgen Klopp himself commented on the counter-attacking threat that Luton had. Of course, as always playing a top side, if you're one of those near the bottom, you do need your goalkeeper to have a good day, which Kaminsky did. And you do need some of your defenders to be on form. And to be fair, I thought Issa Kabore was arguably the best player on the pitch. We also had Ted Mengi in central defence, probably partly due to 4 injuries that we've got back there. Otherwise, he may not be in the team at this stage. But he played really well as well. And the big shout out has to go to Gabe Osho for me because while I thought Kabore and Kaminsky probably edged him on performance overall, you've got to remember that Gabe Osho hasn't played 90 minutes since the playoff final, has been injured for a number of months, came back and played just over half against Villa, and now walks into 90 minutes against Liverpool, effectively marking Mo Salah, and keeps him relatively quiet for the most part. Only really made 1 mistake on the ball as well, and this season may suit him a bit better because some of the mistakes you saw from him last year were on the ball when it was a bit too easy with a bit too much time. And I don't think he's going to have that this year. And I think he will develop with time into a very good Premier League centre-half. So another one the recruitment team picked up from Reading reserves that's ended up being pretty good. But let's talk about the goal as well, because going forward, we have got a man who is very much starting to shine. And that man is Ross Barkley. Basically took a whole Liverpool midfield out with a couple of touches and overall started to control the game and attacks for us. And while he's going to lose the ball more than other players, and even when there were some of the complaints about his performance against West Ham, where he would be a little bit disappointed, but he was still attempting more key passes than anyone else. And we have to accept that if we want players who are going to try and unlock the door and create something special for us, some of the times that's not going to come off. And some of the times other players aren't going to be on his wavelength, particularly at this level. So for Ross Barkley, a really great moment, was so instrumental in the goal. And it was a great counter-attack. Kabore's ball in brilliant, and Talif Chong with a very good finish. Might be pushing for a start, although Townsend experience did seem to help Kabore for the first hour or so. It was also an electric atmosphere at Kenilworth Road. I will get it out the way and address it very quickly. If you were one of that minority up in a little corner shouting stupid chants, then just have a look at yourself. I mean, seriously, all you've done is taken a gloss off the 98% of the stadium that created a brilliant atmosphere, because it was the loudest I've heard the Kenilworth Road end, probably even including the Watford game last season, for some time. And you've taken a gloss off what was a brilliant performance on the pitch as well, because now people are talking about that. And now the club and the whole fan base is getting unfair scrutiny because of what 1 or 2% of people have done. So if you are those people, just have a look at yourself, seriously. But on a more positive note, a brilliant performance, a brilliant atmosphere overall, and a brilliant goal with many positive signs and many positive performers. So there's so much to be excited about. It was Luton competing with a top Premier League side, going toe-to-toe, and believing they could win the game. Of course, periods without possession where Morris and then Adebayo had to sit and just try and block passing lanes, which I know you can see on social media a few people get frustrated about, but it's very clearly a tactical instruction. And if we're going to play like that every week, we're going to have one hell of a chance. So if you are one of the few as well who's starting to slander strikers because they're not scoring goals when they're doing a job for the team, I mean, just seriously, look in the mirror, look at where we are. I mean, we were losing to Welling and Braintree 10 years ago. I mean, let's have a little bit of perspective. I love non-league football, but there's a very big difference in where we've come from and to. And to really have any negativity at this point is a little bit ambitious. We're out of the bottom three again. Yes, it's a low points total, but we've got a better goal difference than all of the three below. More goals scored, less goals conceded. And as you saw again at the weekend, as you saw against Villa where we kept the score down, we're staying in games. We're not folding. And that's something that the other sides down there are doing. Of course, a win or two would make a big difference. And you could argue this is a game that may suit Luton to the ground, because while there are a few quality players in this United team at the minute, several of them are currently out injured. Casemiro, Lissandro Martinez, Varane has been out recently as well. They've also been missing Lindelof, who would have been their third centre-half. And probably most crucially for this game, Luke Shaw as well, who I think is going to be a big miss for them against this opposition. Now, there is every chance United turn up and win 2 or 3-0, but on the flip side of that, we have got a great counter-attacking threat, and Manchester United have notoriously this season, and under Eric Ten Hag, been pretty soft to play through down the middle, which if Ross Barkley is in the form he was in against Liverpool, will be a lovely field day for us. But also the big battle comes about, where does Ogbene play? Does he switch Ogbene and Townsend and put Ogbene up against either Dalot, who's going to be playing left back, or Amrabat if he chooses to put him there? If he puts Amrabat left back, we're going to have a lovely time, because he'll vacate position and whoever's on the right will get a field day. And if it's Ogbene, it will be chance after chance after chance. But the question is, can we then get enough up in attack? Can we go away from home and take the game to Manchester United as well? They're the questions that have got to be asked. I mean, Luton have still got more points away from home this season. Their only winners come on the road. And bar those first two games where we perhaps did show a bit too much respect to those two sides, we've been relatively solid as well. 7 conceded in the last 4 on the road, and managing to pop up with 5 goals in those as well. For Manchester United, it's a bit difficult, because my instinct was to say, I think Luton might nick a draw here, but United are very much hit or miss at home this season. Obviously had their late turnaround against Brentford, but aside from that, I mean, it's 3 wins, 3 defeats. They've let in a lot of goals and have not scored many. Now, I don't know that Luton have got enough to keep a clean sheet against United, because they have got pace in behind, and the likes of Rashford and Højlund will be a threat against a team that is very light defensively due to injuries. But by the same token, I fancy us at the other end with either Morris or Adebayo up against potentially Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire, particularly if you can pin Maguire to the striker and then get Johnny Evans maybe susceptible to a break from an Ogbene or from a Townsend, then maybe he could be caught out. We'll wait and see. I've got huge respect for them too. I think the vilification, particularly of Maguire, has been well overboard, as I'm sure most sensible neutral fans do. But I feel Luton have got a chance in this game. I can't wait to go to Old Trafford as an away fan. I've only been there for an England game before, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if we can compete. The truth is, if we play like last weekend, we've probably got a great chance of winning. Whether that happens is 50-50 or not. So United fans are going to have to forgive me. Don't think I'm a horrible bias man, because I have not predicted a Luton win on this podcast yet this season. Even the one against Everton, I thought we'd lose. But I just got a feeling about this game. I was going to go for 1-1 until I saw that United hadn't drawn a home game. I know there's every chance that it will be 2 or 3-0 United. Please don't worry about that. But I'm going to be ambitious. Why not? Let's have some belief after the last week. I'm going to go for Luton to win. I'm going to have a bit of fun. Let's go for 2-1. And when you see the prediction recap from last week in a minute, you'll see why I may be going for that. Give you guys a chance to get some points on the board. So there's my preview of Manchester United Luton. I mean, we have got to deal with the set piece threat as well, but hopefully we won't give too many of them away. But if I'm being honest, and all jokes and whatever aside, I'm just looking forward to going to another big away ground, another great Premier League away day. And it is just brilliant to watch us compete at this level. So fantastic stuff from the players. Let's hope it's a good day out. And if my result comes off, I'm sure Erik ten Hag will be under significant pressure, but I wouldn't bank on it too much. With that done though, let's move on to the full weekend predictions. And to do that, we need to have a quick look back and recap of what happened in matchday 11. Where, to be honest with you, I probably had one of my best prediction weeks in a very long time. The Luton game is one of the few I got wrong. I also misjudged the sheer level of ill-discipline we were going to see on Monday night in the Spurs-Chelsea game. But otherwise, you can see 3 perfect scores. United's 1-0 win, Palace's 2-0 win, and Newcastle's 1-0 win as well. And if it wasn't for an abysmal VAR decision in the Sheffield United-Wolves game, it would have been 4 perfect scores, which would have been a record for the season. As it is, I pick up 12 points overall, 3 other correct outcomes as well for Everton-Brighton's draw, Forest win against Villa, and City's win against Bournemouth. And that means I win the match day by quite some distance, I'm afraid. The closest was Steve on 9, but we've got 12 points. So let's see if you can do any better this weekend. These are my predictions for match day 12. Get yours in the comments as well. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And we'll see if I have a bad week, which is normally what happens when I've had a pretty good one. I get a bit too ambitious, go for a few too many goals, and it all falls apart. And you can see from these predictions, I've certainly gone for goals all right. No 0-0 draws. I start with Wolves and Spurs drawing 1 apiece. Spurs are going to have their squad tested after losing almost half their team to injury or suspension from Monday. I've gone for Arsenal to beat Burnley 5-1 because they've just not shown they can stay in games, Burnley. And I worry about them massively at the back. Crystal Palace against Everton, I've gone for a 1-0 home win. Roy Hodgson, again, just picking up results, doing a decent job. Wasn't a great performance at Burnley, but they got the win which they needed. You know I've gone for Luton to shock United, but it's on a hunch. Whether or not it happens, who knows. I've gone for Newcastle to nick a 1-0 at Bournemouth. Again, struggling for players a bit. Had a tough night in Dortmund on Tuesday. Villa to win 3-0 at home to Fulham. I know they were disappointing at Forest, which we predicted would happen. But at home, they're absolutely relentless. And Fulham haven't got the biggest goal threat in the Premier League. Brighton to get a home win against Sheffield United, who, to be fair, were fortunate with the late penalty at home. But great atmosphere there again when they got the win. Liverpool to pit Brentford 2-1. They've just been doing a job this season, but not really taking chances too often. We saw that in abundance in the Luton game, and they still are a little susceptible defensively. And Brentford have got a great record away at the Big Six. West Ham v Nottingham Forest, I've gone for a 2-1 home win. Forest bounced back last week, but away from home, they've not always been as strong, and they won't just be able to sit behind the ball against West Ham. The Hammers have been great in the Cups, but I think they'll get a league win here as well. And again, the fact that David Moyes is under pressure is laughable. And in the final game is Chelsea versus Manchester City. I actually feel a bit for Anthony Taylor being given this game. He's clearly out of form as a referee. I thought he would have just preferred one of the lower profile ones, but not to be. Chelsea versus City, I've gone for a 3-1 away win. City are starting to purr again. They're starting to find form. And for me, they win this game pretty comfortably. 3-1 is the score I've gone for. So those are just my predictions for match day 12. Do you agree or disagree with them? I'm sure United fans will disagree, and I don't begrudge you that. Please then let me know in the comments below what you've gone for this match day. If you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out in the next recap, which will be in 2 weeks' time, looking ahead to Luton v Palace after the international break, and of course, match day 13. In the meantime though, if you did enjoy this episode, please do put a thumbs up on the video. I hope you're looking forward to the game if you are heading off to Old Trafford as well. And fingers crossed it'll be a good performance to match. If you want to stay up to date with everything on the podcast, as we'll be back with championship predictions for the weekend tomorrow. And please do subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Another quick announcement for Luton fans. We've got an interview with a Luton legend dropping during the November international break. Keep your eyes peeled for that one as well. And if you like the Championship too, we've had several manager specials this week. They're all up in the eye above. But thank you very much for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for Matchday 16 predictions from the Championship.